We have these beliefs, but then when they're revealed to other people, it's almost as though we're afraid to show those beliefs, to show our opinions, our views, or who we're actually about, what types of interests we have, whether that be meditation. For me, I like to hug trees. That's what brings me the most spiritual bliss. I don't do it all the time because it's summertime and there's insects, but but dude, like I probably look like a fucking freak to people. I used to be outside Davidson. I would sit down on the stump and then after I would hug a fucking tree and people would walk by me and like eventually I got to the point where I used to be like super conscious of it, but I just don't give a fuck anymore. It's weird. Yeah, it's weird to them, but to me, I love doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 50th episode of the Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy, Mr. Jason Scalora. So yes, guys, today is episode 50.
Half a century of episodes.
Well, yeah, guys.
That's so many episodes.
If you have been around since the first episode, man, you are an OG, and we really appreciate you.
And there are 6 of you. Let's go.
Actually, 5. Joke's on you.
Joke's on you.
Hey. Yeah. Better than 4.
Better than none.
Better than
Better
none.
the content's out there than in your head and not being spread. Ooh.
My man busting rhymes like he's a dime.
Like
and he's got some time.
And my watch shines.
And we get no bitch. Okay. But anyways, guys, today we're switching it up a little bit. You know, we're trying to keep it fresh for us and for you. So we're gonna take a little bit of a different approach. If you do enjoy this, make sure you let us know. And yeah, without any further ado, Jason, start it off.
So basically, Cal and I were talking about it, and we came to the consensus. And I'm sure it was kind of like unconscious for a little bit, like not unconscious, but like we kind of knew it was. Like the podcast kind of getting repetitive, especially because it's the 2 of us having conversations all the time, right? Yeah. And eventually,
you only talk about so much,
right? With self-improvement, like if we could, I mean, if you and I could talk, and it would be interesting. At least to us, it would be interesting, and just record as many conversations as we wanted to. But it would be joking around. It would be normal conversations. It'd be conversations about life, about random shit that we're doing, whatever. Like, but when it comes to personal development, I think that having 2 of the same perspectives over and over and over again, eventually you kind of uncover all of at least the basics. So that's kind of why we're at where we're at, and that's what we're doing. We're doing. So essentially, what we're gonna do is before some of our episodes, depending on whatever's going on, we're gonna show some clips. Cal's gonna cut it in, but at the same time, Cal and I are gonna be listening to the clip, and then we're gonna just talk about it.
Yeah, discuss it from there.
Yeah. So today we're using clips from my TikTok, but these are clips from a Gary Vee seminar.
When you do shit, who factors in? Who runs through your mind? Who are you curious about on how they would react or think? Who are those people?
Honestly, that would probably be like actually Pierce right here. Pierce, if you saw the viral picture, he was the one that was praying. He's a very good friend of mine.
So Pierce's opinion matters.
Absolutely.
Good.
And
who else?
My girlfriend and my parents and my sister.
Great. You need to get into a place where you respect Pierce's girlfriend parents, you love Pierce's girlfriend parents, you'll do anything for Pierce's girlfriend parents, but you get into a place where you don't give a fuck about Pierce's girlfriend and parents.
Sounds good.
I mean, what do you think?
I want to hear what you think first.
So for me, when it comes to this specific situation, he was doing a Q&A, and he was talking to somebody in the crowd, and the guy was like, listen, like, how do you just, how do you take the leap and get over the fear of judgment from other people? Essentially, is what he was asking.
Okay.
And he was like, listen, like, you got to understand something. Essentially what he said was, you could still love these people, but go against what they say. You could still love these people and go against the grain of what they think you should do. You could still love these people and feel their judgment at the same time and do what you think is best for your life anyways. And so for me, essentially what it means is that you have to, like he said, get to a point where you love them, but you don't give a fuck about their opinions because they're not him. They're not you. Your mom and your dad and your friends and your family don't have your brain. You're in there 24/7 because it's you, right? And with that fact in mind, nobody else on this earth can tell you what's going to be the most fulfilling for your life, what path, what career, whatever is going to be most fulfilling for you, except yourself. And so that's why I think Gary Vee comes to the point where he says, listen, you have to say, I love you, Pierce, girlfriend, parents. I respect you, Pierce, girlfriend, parents. But you get to the point where you don't give a fuck about Pierce, girlfriend, and parents.
Okay, yeah, because I think I missed the initial question there. What he said. It's I'm glad you broke that down really well. And so I think for me, even whether it be just people I know or the past relationships I've had, or just like anybody that I'm talking to, whether it be a customer, I know they're very like, I personally subconsciously, like, I could say I don't give a fuck about their opinions, but when it comes to that actual situation, and we've talked about this before, when I say, like, when we bring up, like, what am I doing with my life, right? And I value their opinion a lot, right? And so, of course, over time, I'm the one that chooses that value, and I don't let it stay with me, but I think it is for a lot of individuals, they, like you said there, they value other people's opinions. Like, I think you said this perfectly when we were talking about happiness, right? And so when people are why would you take advice from someone that's not necessarily happy, right? And so in a parallel example to that, why would you take advice from someone that doesn't really know what they're talking about, right? And so why would you, it doesn't really make sense, right? But we do it anyways, right? And so I think it's kind of like, in my opinion, we believe, so we have these beliefs, right? We have, but then when they're revealed to other people, it's almost as though we're afraid to show those beliefs, right? And to show our opinions, our views, or who we're actually about, right? Like what types of interests we have, whether that be meditation. For me, I like to hug trees, and that's what brings me the most spiritual bliss, right? And I don't do it all the time because it's summertime and there's insects, but but dude, like, I'm not like, I probably look like a fucking freak to people, right? Like, I used to be outside Davidson, right? I would sit down on the stump, right? And then after, I would hug a fucking tree, and people would walk by me, and like, eventually I got to the point where I used to be like super conscious of it, but I just don't give a fuck anymore. Yeah. And it's weird. Yeah, it's weird to them, but to me, I love doing it, right? And I think it's also it's like, all morality subjective, right? Completely relative. Like, obviously, don't go fucking.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a contradiction. It's a huge contradiction. But when you dig deeper, you understand that this philosophy is being applied to a situation where it should be applied. That's for the betterment of you, right? For example, when you're growing up and you're learning how to be socialized when you're a young kid, you should care about the judgment of everybody else, and you should care about it a lot, right? Because if every time you say something stupid or hurt someone's feelings or act inadequately and inefficiently in the world where you're not being a betterment to the society, you should feel judged because that pain is what's going to get you to whip yourself into shape to be a well-socialized human being. So you can go out into the world and you can treat people kindly, you can contribute, and you can get as well, right? But if you're not socialized properly, then you're going to ignore those judgments, and as a result of that, your life's going to be worse and everybody else's life is going to be worse. So in those kinds of cases, we're like, hey, you should be using the judgment of these other people to better yourself. That, I think, is useful, but it's only to a certain extent, right? Because at that point, society knows how you should be acting because it would help society because it's been proven to do so, right? But they know what's in the other end of that. In the situation where this guy is afraid of his parents' judgment and his girlfriend and Pierce's judgment, they don't know what's on the other side of that because they're not him. They don't know that their judgment and them trying to tell him what he should do isn't helpful. It's not, because they're not him. But in the case where you should listen to the judgment of people is when they know what's on the other side and they know that that's better for you. Because your mom doesn't know whether being a dental hygienist is actually good for you or not. She doesn't.
Yeah, and a lot of times when that situation comes up, whether it be that parental pressure, right, whether that be that you feel the need to conform, a lot of times a parent will say, oh, I'm just doing what's best for you. And maybe sometimes they are, right? Like when you're a young kid, right? Like, and there's a hot stove and you want to touch it, right? And they're like, don't fucking touch it, right? Like, you'll burn yourself, right? And, a lot of people now will be like, oh, let them touch the stove, let them learn themselves. All right, put that to the side for just a second. So like a lot of times when you face that parental pressure, right, and that, oh, this is, I got it. Oh, dude. Come on, man. So, okay, I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago, right? And so a lot of times when we face that parental pressure, oh, yes, epiphany.
If they only knew how long you just sat there like pondering like Socrates. All right, go.
All right, so a lot of times parents will say to their child, right, to not do certain things, right, or to explore certain areas, right, like you're gonna be a doctor, right, you're gonna do this, right, you're gonna whatever. And so I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. When they tell you that, a lot of times it's maybe on the surface of it and maybe within their conscious mind, they're like, oh, I'm doing what's best for them. When in actuality, they're doing what they want them to do, right? And so that in itself is a very selfish act on their parents, right? Of course, there's things in their experience, they have knowledge, right? But I think when it comes down to maybe it be parenting, or if a child's facing that type of situation, right, like maybe chasing their dreams or is afraid of certain opinions, right, or and they have that developed understanding about what's right, what's wrong for the most part, and not going to just be a jackass as we've discussed before,
right?
You got to really dig deep within yourself and dive deep within yourself to have the courage and have that ability to overcome that pressure, because it is hard to do, right? To overcome what your parents want, right? And you don't want to see at least I don't want to see my mom sad, or I don't want to see my mom not necessarily satisfied with what I'm doing, because like even in my own personal circumstances, whether it be content creation, right? A lot of people, it's not very acceptable. It's not very normal, right? And so they'll look at something like this, maybe they're not as aware, and they'll be like, oh, content creation? That's not
you
really...
get a total different vibe when you tell someone, oh, I'm going to go be a lawyer and get a secure job, or as a doctor and get a secure job. And you say, no, I'm going to create content, right? But the irony of it is that in 5, 10, 20 years, when you're successful as fuck and you're making more than 3 doctors combined, because it's not about the money, because it's about what you do and what you love doing and what you're good at doing. Yeah. And so you get paid for that value, then they're going to look at you and be like, oh my gosh, Cal, good for you. I've been rooting for you for the whole time.
It's always after you do it, too. It's like they don't believe in you now and then once they see the results, right, they see how well you're doing, that judgment begins to change, right? And so I think a lot of parents, maybe they don't, but they look back on not allowing their kids to do something they actually wanted to do, right? And I'm not saying this isn't my own personal case. My mom is very great at letting me do what I want. I'm sure vice versa with you too. And a lot of parents out there, but for people that completely restrict their child and turn their child away and don't make them feel comfortable with talking about their interests, turning their maybe not even having a job, right? Having a lifestyle, right? And based on that lifestyle, they gain a monetary income.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of parents out there want their children to do certain things, to be certain things, to get a certain job, etc., because they want to look good about their kids, right? Because
it's selfish.
They're taking their kids as a direct reflection of themselves, which they are to a great extent, because nurture is real. But here's a good example, is I have a really good friend, and I'm not going to say any names, but he'll know who he is. And he really hasn't ever talked to a girl in his entire life, and has never had a girlfriend. He's 21. Like, he's never done any of that stuff. He's a good kid. He works his ass off. He's a good-looking kid. He lives a positive life. He's a happy guy. And there have been plenty of girls, like, not blowing smoke up his ass. There's been plenty of girls that have wanted to, have a relationship with him, get into something with him, whatever. And he's just kind of been like, nah, like, just not really interested. And his dad gives him so much shit for it. And he just talks about it all the time, like all the time. And you could tell it doesn't make my friend feel good, but it's like, you got to think about why. It's like, if you asked his dad, he'd probably tell you, oh no, it's because I want him to be happy and have a girlfriend. This is none of it's for me. It's like, no. Like, there's no way, because when he is just chilling alone without a girl, and you see and you talk to him and he tells you it's not bothering him and he likes this lifestyle, at that point in time, if you still are pressuring him to go and get a girlfriend or whatever, that's because you want to be able to tell people, yeah, my son has a girlfriend. Maybe he's going to work and his coworkers are telling him, oh, like, look at my son and his girlfriend at prom. Look at my son and his girlfriend doing this or whatever. But he's sitting there like, fuck, you know, my son doesn't do anything. And he's dreading the question of who's your son's girlfriend, or does he have a girlfriend yet? Or ha, you're the one that raised a kid that doesn't know how to get a girl, right? And so that's where that's coming from. And so when it comes to judgment in that sort of manner, you really have to be cognizant of why your parent or whoever is wanting you to do something. That's the important question, is why. It's really why. And a lot of times the reason why is because they do want the best for you. They want you to get a safe and secure job because they love you and they don't want you to be broke and on the street. They don't want you to be living in their house till you're 60 years old. They don't want that for you. They want you to live a good life. But a lot of times they don't know what's best for you because they aren't you. Yep. But you really just have to be able to reflect inwards and understand when it's time to take note of their judgment and when it's time to say, I love you, but I can't. Fuck your opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I was like, when you gave that example, I was really thinking about, where do we place value, right? Because when we place value, right, depending on how much value we place, so I place a lot of value, hypothetically, I place a lot of value on my parents' opinion, right?
Right.
That's going to have the biggest impact on me, right? And whether that be satisfying those opinions, right? That's going to mean the most to me.
Right.
And so I also think, too, on the flip side of that, I was thinking about this as well. Like, when the parents, they find a lot of their worth, as you pointed out, in their child, right? How well they do, right, is a reflection back on them, right? And so in both those areas, they align very well, right? And so I think no matter what, like you pointed out, nurture is going to be a very, if a parent has a child, right, depending on the parent, like if they truly care about their child, they'll want to see them do well, right? They'll want to see them live a preferable life, live where they're growing, right? Where they're just living a high quality lifestyle. Right. But it's really about you changing, like you got to, instead of aligning always with that, value, like with your parents' value and your own value, if you can kind of change that, maybe not drastically, but change it in that singular area that you're working on, that's when you won't, feel the most pressure when it comes to being diverging your opinion elsewhere or actions elsewhere, right? Right. And then on top of that, you will actually do it, right? Because you're changing your values, you're changing your beliefs, and you're not placing, I'm not saying you shouldn't place any value on your parents' opinion, right? Because obviously they've helped you develop into the individual you are today, right? And they've been there for you your entire life. Of course, you should take their opinion into consideration. But as you pointed out, you know where the journey is going. Therefore, you should be the one that has the highest opinion, right? That has the most control over that steering wheel, where it's going, because you ultimately are the one. And I think, like, the way I just thought about this is, for a parent to be the highest opinion, it's like them. So you're in the driver's seat, right? But you don't have your hands on the wheel, right? They're like, I don't know, they're like levitating outside the car, steering it from the outside.
They're in the passenger seat, fucking steering it for you.
Yeah, or they're on the outside steering it backwards. Like, right? They don't, like, they can't see behind them, right? They can't see where it's going, right? And so I think you really got to take control over the driving wheel, and obviously say hi to your parents in the passenger seat, but like, hey, I got to go on this ride. If you're not with me, you got to get out. You know? Right.
And again, I mean, obviously, I'm not a parent. I don't know if I would be any better or do any better, but whatever better means. I'm not. And I'm not claiming to be a good parent. I'm just saying, from my perspective of my 21 years on earth, of where I stand with this, which is that your parents, for the most part, right? Obviously it's case dependent, but your parents want the best for you. They love you. They want you to be as happy and as fulfilled and live the best life as possible, right? Because they're your parents. Of course they want the best for you. But that means that you need to understand when you need to value their opinions and their judgments of you, because they should have judgments of you and they should have opinions on you, but you need to know A, where those opinions and judgments are coming from, and B, if it's the right time to actually listen to them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But that applies to everyone, right? I don't care if it's some nameless, faceless person in my comment section that's saying, you're a fucking idiot, I hate your videos, and at the beginning, your clips are way too long when you point up to the, like, we're just looking at words for too long. That comment, I've had that I literally had that comment one time, and because I'll point in the beginning of my videos with like the caption, and it would be like 5 seconds of like the words up there, and someone just roasted me for it, like, but they said some vulgar shit, whatever,
unnecessary stuff,
right? But I had to essentially use a colander on it, let the bullshit and just shitty like narrative sift out, and be like, oh shit, like the intros of my videos are too long. Like, let's make them shorter. Let's upgrade the quality of it, right? And so there's certain situations where even if you don't know them, it doesn't have to be your mom and dad telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing with your content or whatever it is you're doing in life. But anybody giving you any sort of criticism, judgment, or their opinions on your life, good or bad, you need to understand where and when is a good time. And it also applies to the good stuff, right? If you edit a video and it comes out dog shit for your standards, right? And you know it's not good, but I go and tell you, Cal, this video was bomb, right? This shit was bussin'. Like, that video was sick. But you know inherently that video wasn't good. I'm not saying you got to be like, fuck you, Jay. No, it wasn't. But you have to, at least accept a compliment if you want to, but you have to at least understand in that moment of, no. This was inadequate. Don't let that opinion and judgment of you positively affect you positively, because you need to understand that was below your standard, because I don't know what your standard is. Maybe that's good for my standard, but maybe that's not good for yours. So it doesn't matter if the opinion or judgment of somebody else is good or bad, makes you feel good or bad. You need to be in the driver's seat, like you said. You need to have final jurisdiction over how you let that affect you and what you're going to do and the meaning that you give it.
Being able to properly discern information, and like you said perfectly there, like when you had that really vulgar comment, right? Like you gotta, like, they made a good point, right? But they added all this extra shit that you could dive into, right, and feel horrible and completely miss the message that they're trying to send, and not being able to apply it and maybe actually make.
Well, it's funny because if you read that comment, you'd be like, he just wants to feel significant. And wants to make a point so that he'll have 1,000 likes on his comment in my comment section, and so that he'll get the attention and he'll feel significant for it, and he'll get the replies and whatever, right? He wants to feel significant because of that comment. Little did he know he was serving me in amazing ways, but that was all dependent on my choice of that, my perspective on it, right? I understood what the comment was. I understood, at least to what I thought, why he commented what he commented. But now it's my choice on what I'm going to use. Am I going to understand let's say he says, you're fucking ugly, and also the music was too loud. Right? Pick and choose. I
think it's a personal attack.
I know.
But I don't think that has anything to do with
you pick and you choose, right? And you don't need to burn bridges down. But when people give you their opinions and judgments, you need to understand why they're saying what they're saying, where they're coming from, and what that means for you.
Yep. And I think also, to wrap up this little segment, I think also being the individual that's giving that criticism, be constructive, right? Have that constructive criticism. Put all the bullshit to the side. I know you might want to say it, right? Even to get that significance, to get those likes, to get that attention. But if you truly want to say something, and you truly think this is something that needs to happen to move towards a positive end, you'll put all that other bullshit to the side and make a mature response. So, for example, for me, like this. Sean Bakley was like, all right, does anybody in the comment section, have they ever done well on a plant-based diet? Let me know. And I was like, oh, in my own anecdotal experience, right? Meaning this is not like, I'm not making a objective claim here, right? I'm saying in my own experience, I'm the strongest and leanest I've ever been, and I feel great. Right. And that's how I said it, right? Simple, to the point, objective. I'm not being like, you carnivore, you bitch. Plant-based diet makes you feel great. You know, like exactly like that comment that you other had. But it's about that constructive criticism that helps the individual you're talking to be better. Of course.
Really, people I know make $120,000 a year. who if they made 89,000 would be 50,000 times happier, and the only variable difference is instead of driving a BMW, they'd have to drive a Toyota. Like it's crazy how people get caught up in the wrong shit.
There's so many people out there that are not willing to decrease some area of their life because of a need to feel cool, right? They'll work an extra 20 hours a week that they didn't have to work because they want to go on vacation, but not because they want to go on vacation, but because they want to post on Instagram that they went to fucking Hawaii or Aruba or whatever. And so that people can comment about, oh my gosh, that's so cool. You're living so bougie or whatever.
Yeah.
90% of the time, I feel like, I mean, that's a fucking stat I can't throw out. But there's so many people that I know where if you can get asked them the question of, would you do this if nobody else knew? Would you still be doing this? Yeah. The answer would be no.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and I think very much so. People, and I remember I got this instinctual type of fear a couple months ago that I was just really like, I woke up and I didn't wake up. I was just like, I don't know, I was just around. It took me so long to say that, dude. But yeah, so I was just, I was around town.
I was just around,
I was just around, and
I just walking, just literally walking around. All right, go.
I don't know where I was, but I started to fear not being able to make enough money to do things that were cool, right? I was like, and like, I don't actually think this way. I don't actually believe this, right? And this is very much so similar to what we were just talking about, right? I was like, oh my God, I won't be able, like, if I do like a nonprofit or video editing, I won't be able to make enough money to do or to go on cool vacations, to, do this cool stuff that other people will be doing if they get a lot of money, right? And so it's really, a lot of people compare themselves, right, based on that. And so in order for them to feel significant, in order for them to gain that attention, and I guess you could say egoic validity, they will put themselves on a track and start doing things in order to garner that attention, right? In order to, I guess, be like, oh, wow, or have people, or at least in their mind, have people think that they're doing really well, right? Yeah. And even though people most of the time don't really give a fuck, or they'll fall into the same trap that I did and be like, they'll feel inadequate themselves, and they'll just, it'll be like a cycle, right? That just projects that into other people.
It's essentially the cycle that creates addiction to significance, right?
Yeah,
and feeling unique and special. But at the same time, I got to give the devil its due. It's like, there is the flip side to the coin where somebody does want to spend, $50,000 on a BMW because they grew up loving cars. Their dad, their granddad, their whole family just loves nice vehicles. That's all they spent. They spend a ton of their time learning about it. They love it. They just love it, right? And so that car payment, that expensive car payment. So I looked.
No, I just looked down. I was like, oh, those are your spandex.
Essentially, what I was getting at is there is an extent to where there's certain things that if you're working your ass off to have a nice car, but the reason you want the nice car is so that people can see you driving down the street in your loud BMW, then you really got to take a look at where you're spending your time and money and see and ask yourself, okay, all this stress I'm adding into my life, why the fuck is it there? Is it because I actually love cars and I grew up loving cars and it's just a unique thing that I enjoy collecting or whatever? Or is it because I feel inadequate with who I am?
Yeah.
And this is a good way to have my sense of self-worth be pristine, because when I pull up to work or when I pull up to school, people give me compliments, and that's what makes me feel good about myself. So therefore, I'm willing to spend 40 hours a week in a job that I hate when I could spend 20 hours a week doing something I love because of a fucking car payment, because I feel insecure. And that happens a lot. But there is the other side to where maybe you really just do love cars and it's worth it for you. But it will feel totally different, right? It will feel way, way different.
Yeah, and I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to I believe my sociology teacher in high school, and maybe this was in college, I'm not too sure, but it was like a parallel example to yours, and pretty much this guy, or she said, I don't know if it was someone she knew or a story she heard, but pretty much this guy he lived in like a normal suburban neighborhood. The guy would wake up every single day, walk outside, or yeah, I think she was a neighbor of someone, and this guy, her neighbor, would walk out in a fairly nice suit, briefcase, right, really nice car, drive off every single day. Turned out he was going to and he would come back, really nicely dressed, briefcase, hair slick, nice haircut, and everything, right? Turned out he was going to a janitorial job, right? And that was had nothing to do with that, and so he would go to work, change completely, and out of that uniform into his suit, right, or vice versa, and yeah, he completely lived that type of lifestyle where he wanted others to see him as a wealthy individual, see someone who's got his shit together, who's living this lavish life. Even though I'm not saying there's obviously great janitors out there, right? He's a janitor, right? Completely two different lifestyles, right? So what lifestyle are you projecting towards others versus what are you actually living, right? And so a lot of people can convince themselves, and I should say partially convince themselves that they're living this significant life, right? That they're living a life that people want, right? And that others are going to desire. But they always, I believe, fall back on that feeling of insignificance, right? They know deep down it's not how they're living, right? And when they're around others, they'll talk a big game. They'll talk about, oh man, I go to the gym 6 times a week. I'm super healthy. I wake up at 5, do all this shit, right? When they're actually eating junk food on their couch, don't care about themselves at all, right? And completely two different stories that aren't lining up, right? And so a lot of people will just create this story, create this narrative that's not actually true. And I think I used to, not to that extent, but I used to post on my story, post on Instagram to, highlight what I was doing, right? And I think a lot of me and my friends genuinely stopped doing that. I stopped highlighting everywhere I went, right? Or just I never really was that type of person, but I never post on my Snapchat story or Instagram story about what I'm doing. If you want to, cool, right? What place that's coming from? What place that's coming from is up to you, and that's...
Well, yeah, you got to ask yourself why.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to ask yourself why. Because if you're posting on your Snapchat story a picture of you working out or whatever the hell you're doing, but you're doing it because you want to inspire people, then that's a totally different thing than I want people to compliment my ass.
We're good.
Those are two very different things. And, I mean, it's always the question is why, right? And so, I don't know. If what you're after is a feeling of significance, you really, really, really need to reevaluate why you're doing the things that you're doing and if it's actually worth it.
Yep. And you shouldn't choose a lifestyle based on something that will make you appear significant in the eyes of others, right? Or you really want to choose a lifestyle that's intrinsically satisfying, that brings you happiness regardless of that dollar sign, right? Obviously you want your basic needs met, right? And a little bit beyond would be nice, but it really just putting that to the side, putting that down, you'll realize you'll feel so like you're already whole and complete. That's an inextricable fact about you, but you'll really feel that consciously.
People who are happy and fulfilled don't fucking need to post on their Snap stories.
Exactly.
People who are happy and fulfilled feel no need to get a super nice car so they can get compliments on how fast they're driving down the highway or whatever.
So that lack really breeds that need.
Right. And the tangible way to get around that is 2 things. 1, build habits that are going to make you love yourself. Because once you love yourself, you're not going to be reliant on anybody else's opinion of you. So you won't spend the $50,000 to get the car or to go on the vacation or whatever. You will add that stress into your life because you feel like you're enough. But 2 is to make sure you're not setting the bar so high to the point where you can't get there alone, to the point where you need other people's opinions. The bar should be set at, I'm good enough when I'm working hard to love myself, and that's enough. I don't need to have a Victoria's Secret model body. I don't need to edit my photos and post on Instagram to get this extra feelings of significance to feel adequate. You are enough because you do enough, right? And so combining those 2 things will give you the self-love and the self-respect And as corny as it sounds, the happiness in your life for you to get to the point where you're not going to be addicted to the significance. And as a byproduct of that, you'll stop feeling the need to have that car. You'll stop feeling the need to go on the vacation, and you'll remove all of the stress that's involved with or working an extra 20 hours or whatever, however it manifests itself.
And your need to rather feel significant will shift towards needing to, I guess, meet your standards, right? Meet your standards, whether that be just self-improvement, right? Or just really any area of your life that's naturally bringing you happiness as a byproduct. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, that has been episode 50 in the books, baby. So, yeah, guys, we have made it this far, and we're not stopping anytime soon. So make sure you guys love yourself because I love you.
Stay handsome.
And we're clocking out, people. Peace.